Good morning, church. It's a pleasure to be here on Sabbath morning in my home church when I was 10 years of age. That's why Steve says I always feel home when I come to Wollongong. In fact, I went to school right there when I was 10. We came to Australia when I was 10, so it was a bit difficult. English was a bit poor, but my first 2 or 3 years were in this church, in this school here. This church has been extended over the years. Thank you for those who are music and organ, he's gone, and those who are the musicians. People normally ask you when you are doing a session. Now it's strange to me, I've been an adult teacher for 25 years, but they say, are you nervous? Somebody out there this morning said to me, are you nervous? I said, no, I've taught adults for 25 years. They said, well, what are you doing in the ladies' toilet? I took the wrong turn. I'm sorry. The title of this talk this morning will come up in a moment, but I first want to ask you, have you ever experienced a crisis in your life? Maybe a small crisis. And I say we all would have our hands up and say, yes, we have experienced a crisis. It could be somebody's been difficult with you. It could be in the church. In board meetings, people can be nasty to you. It could be that life's given you a bad deal. It could be many things. It could be many things where you say, I have had some trouble in my life. Well, what should we do? As a Christian, it will soon come to the forefront as to how we handle crisis. Do we try and solve the problem by ourselves? Or do we sort of go to Christ and say, look, we need some help. We've got to get on our knees and get some help. Now sure, we need to sort of do something ourselves. You can't just cross the road and say, God, save me if I cross the road and hit by a car. No. But God, Christ, can certainly help you in crisis situations. You will quickly discover the relationship with Jesus Christ in the midst of these problems that you might face. The story is Bible story for this morning. Thank you, Nyasha. Thank you, Nyasha. Oh, thank you for the children's story. In fact, it fits in. I'd like to continue with that one, really. Yeah, thank you very much. It's Joseph. Well, Joseph, I should not say that. It's from pit to palace. Now, a lot of you say, oh, I know that story. Well, let's have a look and see how it goes, and let's see what we can get out of this story. The story is in Joseph, and Joseph was a shepherd. We start when he's 17 years old. 70 years old. He was the favourite son of Jacob. Now, favouritism never plays a good role. I was at Palwan and Monju's yesterday, and she said to Niron, he's my favourite son. And he said, Sahana is my favourite daughter. That was all right. That was fine. So Joseph was the favourite son of Jacob, and he had a younger son, Benjamin. Now his brothers, the other 10, they thought, oh, come on, this favouritism is bad news. Why should he have this favouritism? And and that was really getting to them. But what made it worse, well, here we are, the coat of many colours. He got the coat of many colours, so favourite son. Now, they don't call Joseph the dreamer for nothing. He had some dreams. Remember the sheaves? And Joseph's in the middle, and the sheaves started bowing down. And he said this to his brothers. He said, oh, I had a dream. I was in the middle, you were on the outside, and you were bowing down to me. Well, how do you think they felt with that? My goodness, that is absolutely... That's a way to really upset them. He told his dad another dream too, or he told his brothers as well. the stars, moon, sun, and I was in the middle, and the stars, the moon, and the sun were bowing down to me. Also, Jacob, his father, wasn't so happy with that one either. And of course his brothers, well, let's carry on with the story. So we're looking at Genesis 37 here. So sometime later, the brothers are out there, the 10 brothers are out there, shepherds, they're out with the sheep. And his dad says, Jacob says, look, would you go and check on your brothers, see how they're doing. Well, these dreams he had, and his father saying, well, you go and check them out. I mean, that was a one-way trip to the pit. A one-way death trip to the pit. So he packs his bag and off he goes. Couldn't find them initially. Then he sees his brothers, and they say, here comes that dreamer. They were ready to kill him. In fact, they hated him. The Bible says they hated Joseph. Not a very nice thing to say, is it? But they did. So they see him coming and they say, look, we're going to kill him. We're going to kill him. So over he comes, and Reuben, I think it was Reuben, says, he didn't want to kill him, but he didn't say that initially. They thought, well, we don't. Judah said, we don't want to kill him. Why don't we put him in a pit? They had these wells. It was dry. So they ripped off the coat, put him in this well, this pit, and Reuben was just out and about. And they saw some Malachite caravan, camel train coming. And Judah convinced the other 9, why don't we sell him? Let's sell him. Remember the story? Remember the story? Yes. So here comes that camel train, and they probably bartered. They said, now how much can we get for Joseph? 70 years of age, a lot of life ahead for a slave. Let's sell him for a slave to these traders. And I was thinking this morning, they probably bargained. There were 10 sons, and they thought, well, if we get 2 silver shekels, coins, that gives 2, 10, we need 20. So they sell them for 20 shekels. Away he goes. Now what were they going to tell their dad? Jacob. So they had his robe. So the pit, there it is, 20 shekels, with the traders. They took his robe off. So they thought, what we'll do, we'll kill a goat, and we'll put all this blood on his coat, on his coat of many colours. So when they got home, they said to Jacob, they didn't say, this is our brother's coat. They said, is this your son's coat? Because they hated him. Well, being a favourite son, how would he feel? He felt absolutely distraught. And what did they do when they are so upset in this culture? They put on sackcloth. He could not be reconciled. He was so upset. So meanwhile, Joseph is off to Egypt. And it's quite a while. It's not from here to Lake Illawarra or to Osmere. It's a couple of 100 kilometres. So it takes a while to get there. Now, so can we just leave Joseph? Can we just leave Joseph going on this trip? I just want to tell a story here in Wollongong Church, if I may. Just a few minutes, not too long. When I was 10, 12, there were a lot of Dutch people here. And now there's a lot of Africans here. I used to have a class there, and we had I was involved with about 5 or 6 friends. I won't take too long with this story, but it's an important story. And one of my friends there was about 5 or 6, one of my friends was Harry Postman. Now some of you know Harry Postman. This is going back a lot of years. He was early teens, I was early teens. In fact, we were 6 days apart when birthdays came around. He was the youngest son of 4. He was the youngest son. He was my age, and the others probably were 15 years older, the other 3. Two brothers and one daughter. And the father, he was a tailor. It was a great family. I used to be over here a lot. We sort of, ages go on and we sort of get girlfriends, and he got married fairly early. I was his groomsman. He did teaching. And he was living the dream like Joseph was. His father and mother just adored him like Jacob adored Joseph. So he married, lovely woman. He actually was living the dream. Teaching, he enjoyed teaching, went to Wollongong, and we grew, all grew, I guess, yeah. And one Sunday, I married, had 2 children, boy and a girl, and we're 35. One Sunday, I get a phone call. Harry's had an accident. Well, that was a shattering moment, and he's dead. He's dead. A head-on collision in Wollongong, where he was teaching, north of New South Wales. He died, and his mother-in-law died on the same accident. Well, his dad was like Jacob. He was absolutely distraught. Favourite son, like Jacob, he'd had it. Now, many people say, God, why? As we'll see in this story, why does it happen? I used to sit over there, and I thought, oh dear, favourite son, no coat of many colours, but he was really distraught. He kept coming to church. He said, if it's God's will, so be it. Wife remarried, and the children are a lot older now, but it's a very sad moment. Let's carry on. Now, Joseph's on his way. It's a long way to Egypt. That's the scripture reading. That's the Sahana just read. It says, train a child when he is young, when the child is young, and when he is 17, Joseph, see? When he is 17, he will not depart from it. I made up the 17, not in the Bible. So there he is. He was taught by his dad about the scripture, the scriptures. So here he is on his way to Egypt. Now Egypt, as the story went there this morning, he knew nobody. Knew nobody in Egypt. And he sort of lived this camel train, and he didn't have much time for sightseeing when he got to Egypt, because Pharaoh's Potiphar, he worked for Pharaoh. Potiphar bought him. Oh, he was a young man. He was 17, strong, handsome, and that handsome sort of got him in trouble later on too. So here he is in Potiphar's house. And all the way through the Bible says, and the Lord was with Joseph. The Lord was with Joseph all the way through on the camel train. Now you're going to say, well, if the Lord was with Joseph, how did you get in that situation? So Potiphar bought him. There it is. That's Joseph on the left, Potiphar on the right. And again the Bible says, and the Lord was with Joseph. He did well. He had good work ethic. He had a good standard of getting organised. It wasn't long before Potiphar said, well, you can be in charge of our house. In fact, Potiphar was blessed because of Joseph's work in his house. So he's doing well. You want to say he's on a ride, he's good. The Lord was with Joseph. He runs into trouble again. Potiphar's wife, Mrs. Potiphar, now he'd probably been there a while, he was doing well. Potiphar's wife sort of has an eye on Joseph. Why, he's in trouble again. And she said, come to bed with me. Come to bed with me. Over and over again. Come to bed with me. Well, he said, no, I can't. How could I do that against my employer, Potiphar? You're his wife. And look, I can't. And how can I sin against my God? That's the key thing. How can I sin against my God? So one day later, she thought, well, if it's hard to get, I'll get him. So he's in the house by himself, doing his work. And again, she tempts him, and this time she grabs his jacket and screams. So Joseph runs out. Her attendants come in, and she said, "Oh, this slave, this Hebrew, is trying to make fun of me." And I think she probably accused him of rape. So when Potiphar came home, she told him, where does he finish up? Finish up in jail, in the prison. That's the other P, see? Pit, prison, palace. See, here he is, finishes up in prison. No court proceedings, whack, straight in there. Now, I don't have time to tell you another story, but some of you older people will know the story of the Chamberlain Case. Can I mention 2 minutes? The Chamberlain Case. Quickly, the story goes like this. They were up Uluru, used to be called Ayers Rock, camping there. Camping at Ayers Rock, and one evening they had a 9-week-old baby and 2 boys. They were camping there, as people used to do, probably still do. Never been there myself. And it was probably on dusk. Lindy and Michael Chamberlain, the parents, were outside, and they heard a bit of a commotion. They go to the tent, the baby's gone. The baby is gone. Where'd the baby go? Well, must be a dingo. Dingo is a dog, wild dog. The dingo took the baby. They searched all night, no baby, nothing. Nothing could be found. So just quickly the story. The magistrates' court in Alice Springs decided that it was just happened. Nothing could be done. It's just, what do they call that? One of these coronial inquiry, was it? And nothing could be done. However, I remember seeing on the television when they were exonerated. No, they were sort of. It was it. I remember seeing a big picture of Azaria, and the media got hold of it because they, well, they're Adventists. He was an Adventist minister. Mount Isa. And all Adventists, they sacrifice children, they do this, they do that, and they were probably a little bit like Joseph towards his brothers. The media thought, hang on, and so did the legal people. The legal thought, hang on, what's going on here? And they were out to get him. Lindy Tome was going. She was going to a pit. She was going to jail. It took about 2 years. They did testing, they did forensic testing, and they were out to get them. And so was the media. They found blood in the car, so-called blood. It turned out to be undercoat, but it took 2 years. And I remember I was in a class. I was 82 now, 1980, it happened, 1982. I was in a class teaching law at the time, and all of a sudden somebody said, she's going to jail. They found her guilty. They found her guilty at the Supreme Court in the Northern Territory. She was in jail for 3.5 years. They kept fighting. Anyhow, she was pardoned and took a lot of time, took a lot of years to get exonerated. Back to Jacob. So here's Jacob in jail, but the Lord was with him. The Lord was with Jacob. Sorry, Joseph. The Lord was with Joseph. It's just seeing whether you're listening or not. If you're not listening, you sort of say, yeah. The Lord was with Joseph. He was doing well, and again he got a promotion. He was doing so well that the person inside the jail said, look, you can help me out here. You can help me out. And he did. Joseph helped out in the jail. He was good, this Joseph, because the Lord was with him. Then he was... so with Potiphar, he was probably there about 3 years. 3 years with Potiphar. So he's in jail, and because the chief cupbearer and the baker had done something wrong, they were tossed into jail. And one morning, they looked depressed. They weren't happy, and Joseph says, "Hey, fellas, what's wrong with you?" "Oh, we had a dream. I wonder what it means." Now Joseph says, "Look, God can reveal dreams." What were the dreams? Well, the cupbearer says, I had something on my head, 3 glasses of grape juice, and I was serving it to Pharaoh. Well, he said to the cupbearer, in 3 days you will be out of here and you'll get your job back. The baker says, oh, I had a dream like that too. I had 3 baskets, 3 baskets, and I had bread on my head. And Joseph said, in 3 days you'll be out of here, but you'll have your head cut off. Well, I'll bet you, I shouldn't say to bet you, I can guarantee that the baker never asked Joseph again to find out what the dream meant. Of course, it happened. It happened that in 3 days the chief butler was out, and the baker had his head cut off, hung on a cross, and pecked his head. Now, he said to the chief butler, he said, look, can you remember me, please? I've been here 8 years. What have I done? I mean, for this impeccable integrity that I had with Potiphar, I finish up in jail. Get me out of this, what's not a word for jail? Get me out of this, get me out of this dungeon. Please, get me out of this dungeon. Now the chief cupbearer forgot all about it. Now how can you forget about that? Here he is, helped out of jail, but 2 years later, Pharaoh had a dream, and nobody could tell Pharaoh what this dream meant. And then the chief cupbearer thought, I know somebody who helped me. And he told Pharaoh, he said, look, I was helped when I was in jail to get out of here, out of the jail. He's in jail. His name's Joseph. So he got a quick get free card out of jail. Shaved, they had beards apparently, so he shaved, clean clothes. So Pharaoh says, look, I believe you can interpret dreams. Joseph says, no, I can't interpret dreams, but my God in heaven can. Tells him the story about the dream. And you probably know the dream. There was the seven fat cows, 7 skinny cows. Skinny cows ate the fat cows. They were no fatter. There were 7 good corn heads, 7 lousy corn heads. The skinny corn heads ate the big corn heads, and they didn't fatten. Joseph said, this is what it means. There is going to be 7 years of plenty in Egypt. 7 years of plenty. But after 7 years of plenty, there's going to be 7 years of famine. So then Pharaoh said, well, they decided, all these wise men there, who can we get to help out in this situation? Well, they discussed it, and Pharaoh said, well, Joseph, you interpreted the dream, why don't we get Joseph in charge to do this? So they did. There he is. Joseph is building houses, barn houses, for this 7 years of plenty. 7 years of plenty. So this is going to take 7 years. So 7 years of famine, 7 years of plenty into the barn houses, and so that was going all well. He was in charge. You see, he had the robes on there, and you probably couldn't recognise him to when he was 17. He's now 17. He's now 30. No, you have 30. 7 years of plenty. He's about 37 here. 37 years of age. But because of the clothing, you probably wouldn't recognise him. So then comes the famine, and it's around the land, not just Egypt. It's around the land, around the area, and of course everybody's getting a bit not enough food. Not enough food. So Jacob hears about the food in Egypt, and he says to his brothers, "Why don't you go to Egypt and buy us some food?" So off they go, and it's a big trek. It's not just a day; it's a long way to go. So off they go. Benjamin stays home, and there they go. And of course, it's Joseph. And they bow down. Here's the dream. Bow down to Joseph. Now Joseph didn't let on that who he was. He just sort of Well, what did he say? He said, you're spies. You are spies. You're checking out the land to see where you can sort of come in. No. We are sons of one father. And Jocelyn asked all these questions. How big's the family? Oh, I've got one brother at home, and one brother is no more. You know what the no more means, don't you? No more, he's dead. So one brother is dead. That's Joseph. And how's your father? Good, yeah. So they didn't recognise him. And now's the time for revenge, isn't it? Revenge? Do you ever have that feeling? I'm going to get you next time. I'm sorry, I took some point like that. I don't mean you. I'm going to get you next time. But in a way, he did, didn't he? Or he's just testing their faith. What's happened to them? Are they still like they were when they tossed him into the pit and sold him to these traders? No. He was testing them out. He said, look, don't come again. You won't see my face again unless you bring your younger brother along. So they went back and they said to Jacob, the father, we can't go again unless we bring Benjamin along. I said, Jacob said, how come? Well, he asked all these questions. No clicking. I didn't say, well, no, is it Joseph? No. Oh yeah, I hear you, see, bowing down to Joseph, just as he dreamed all those years ago. So they go back and don't tell the whole story because time gets away, but they put the money back in the sacks. Now they were worried. They go back to Jacob and here's the money they were going to pay back in their sacks. And they thought, oh dear, there's a bit of payback here. Something's gone wrong. So they eventually said to Jacob, the dad, that look, we've got to bring Benjamin along. We've got to bring Benjamin along. And finally he gave in. One of the sons said, look, you can kill all my sons if I don't bring him back. So they take Benjamin along, and of course, troubles again. They bow down and they ask, Joseph asks, how's the dad? And Benjamin, and things sort of start to well, he's in tears in a way, he comes back again, and he says, look, I'm your brother Joseph. I'm your brother Joseph. Wow, what? That was a hard one. He said, look, you brothers meant evil for me when you threw me into the pit and sold me to the Ishmaelites, but God wanted me to be in this place so that I can sort of help out in this time of trouble. And that's exactly what happened. Now, I've got to notice that many Christians assume that in these situations that God is not with them. Now, how do you think Joseph felt? Would he have felt that? Well, he didn't feel that God let him down. But where was God? Where was God through all this period of time? And we often ask, well, why do these bad things happen to so-called good people? Why? I remember on July 20 of this year, Parwin Bata, you all know, was up the front here for the Sabbath School devotion. And he'd heard on that morning on FM radio trying to say, well, why do these bad things happen to so-called good people? Now, it's not that I'm good at dates. I remember the next day, July 21 was an important day to me. So, yeah, Parwin, I remember that. Now, it's a hard question. Why do these bad things happen to good people? It's a hard question, hard answer. Or so-called good people. Look, can I tell you just one story? Talk about Parwin. We were in Kathmandu, Nepal for 2 years, looking after an English language school. Now, those who come from Africa, those who have been in Asia, know that the traffic is bad news. The traffic is bad news. We had use of a Land Rover there, an old Land Rover, and I remember going along New Road one day. Parwin was in the passenger seat, And it's people walking, you only go slow, people crossing the road, and I see 3 children, 4, 6 and 8 crossing the road. Right in front of me, I couldn't stop. I hit them. I hit these 3 children. I thought I'm going to jail. Because the front's pretty high, they just disappeared under the front bonnet. I just switched off the car, switched off the motor, put my head on it, and Lord, I'm in trouble here. Because over there, I mean, if you kill locals, you're in trouble. Crowd gathered around there, and Parliament hopped out, and policemen came there quickly. Oh, you're going too fast? I put my head up again, and I must have had a quick prayer. Here they were. They ran from under the car to the other side of the road. I thought, wow. Whew. Now, this is not the full story. This Land Rover had some brake problems. I had to double press every time for it to stop. Double press. I'd had it into the mechanics, and they changed the wheel cylinders. I said, no, it's not the wheel cylinder, this is the master cylinder. Every time I press, nothing happens, I've got to press it again. On this occasion, it worked first time. I say that, like James, the Lord was with me. That was a very disastrous situation. So as I say, it seemed like God wasn't with Joseph all the way. Why didn't God help him with his troubles along the way? That's a good question. Why wasn't he helped along the way? And we can say in retrospect, well, God had this plan. God had this plan for him. So I guess at times we can often ask, could God have done it a different way? Could he have done it differently in our lives? We look back, some of us have health problems, some of us have this, and some of look. There's one member. Well, he was a member in Wollongong Church, and he was a fairly new convert 15 years ago. Very good. He'd go up and preach. He was a good preacher, a good Bible scholar. But he developed health issues. And he hasn't been in church for 5 years. He says, no, if God doesn't heal me, I'm not interested. But that's sad. I mean, why didn't Joseph say, well, God, you've let me down? God was with him all the way. So many of us get stuck in the what God is not doing instead of what God is doing. So really, we all need to get into the place where Joseph was, trusting God despite our circumstances. I'm sure we've all had our problems. I've had our problems. I used to get on my knees and say, God, I need your help now. And we'd get help. I'm going to sort of keep going, praising you all the way. But the problem is we lose our way. I've lost my way, and I think to myself, I've let God down again. Joseph didn't. Integrity, honesty, impeccable, ethical, all the way. So what we should do is bring a lot of this together. What lessons can we learn from Joseph's life? Well, here are a few things that we can learn from Joseph's life. God's plans and purposes are far greater than our own. Do we trust ourselves, or do we trust God? Sometimes we think we can do it alone. God provides blesses those who persevere to follow him, no matter what the situation. Look, I've got this magazine here that I read, The Persecuted Church. And when I read that, it's the voice of the martyrs. Somebody might get it. And I look through here, it's all these countries where Christianity is frowned upon. Not allowed, in fact. You look through here and there's people who are got their faces covered because they don't want to be known. They're in trouble. The persecuted church. And yet they can be so faithful. They can be so faithful. Suffering to God's people is not always bad. Not always bad. God can use the most painful time of our lives for his good. It's like Joseph's brothers. Testing times. Testing times. There is value in self-control, living in the do whatever you want culture. We do. We can seem to do what we can like these days. People say it's all right. Stephen does it. Why can't I? So-and-so's left his wife. I'm not happy I'm married. I'm going to leave my wife. All sorts of problems these days, isn't it? Do as you like culture. God honours patience and perseverance in times of trouble. I know, sometimes it's a long wait. It's a long wait. I know people have been praying for a long time. Do things happen? Now you've got to remember, answers to prayer are yes, sometime later, and no. The Bible tells us so. Strive, here Joseph, strive for honesty and strong work ethics. Joseph had that. They are sadly missing these days. Ethics, have a look at your business problems on the television. Oh, there's always ethics. Politicians. And there is something to be said about fear of the Lord and faithfulness to Him. So, even though your life might be in trouble right now, you're down in the dumps, do you have the courage to trust God despite your current circumstances? So I enjoyed the story of Joseph. Hope you got a bit out of it. It's important. We can use it today. May the Lord add a blessing to the story of Joseph.